Hey Art Nerds, so you guys may have seen from my live stream at the NCE Open House that I have 2 classes coming up with Nashville Community Ed this fall. My classes begin in September and they're really reasonably priced at $69 each for all 6 classes within that class. So NCE has a bunch of really cool classes in their catalog, and if you live in the Nashville area, I can't recommend checking out NCE classes enough. So I'm going to be teaching making comics and intermediate making comics. Making comics is a 6-week class that introduces you to comic making. So if you've always wanted to tell stories in a visual art form like comics, this would be a really great class for you. Intermediate making classes is the next step, and it covers a lot of the materials that I wish we could cover in making classes, but we're not quite able to. So it's great if you're already familiar with the comic making process. Perhaps you have your own webcomic already out, or perhaps you've taken one of my prior classes and you're ready to learn about the next step. So in making comics, students will learn how to plot, plan, and prep an 8-page mini comic on the topic of their choice. You'll learn how to make daily journal comics, create recipe comics, or tell a short story in this immersive class. No drawing skills are necessary. Artists of all skill levels are welcome. Materials will be provided, and the class will end with a comics and zine exchange. This class is open to students age 16 and older without a parent in attendance, or 13 and up if a parent registers as well. So this could be a really great class if you've got a kid or a teenager who loves making comics and could use a supportive environment. Heck, this could be great if you want to learn how to make comics and could use a supportive and kind environment. Intermediate making comics are for people who are interested in making, Intermediate making comics is for people who are interested in taking their comic making experience to the next level. The class expands on concepts taught in making comics and provides materials that more experienced students will enjoy. Students will develop and hone their own comic art style, experiment with digital art processes, alcohol markers, and watercolor, and learn how to letter and lay out their own comics. And they will have access to a large format printer as well as to a scanner during this class. The class will also end in a zine mini comic exchange shared with the Making Comics class, so hopefully we'll have lots of awesome zines and minis to exchange. So previous experience is required since we're going to be focusing a lot more on technical skills in this class than we did in the Making Comics class. But you still don't have to be a super proficient artist. In terms of drawing ability, artists of all skill levels are welcome in intermediate making class comics as well. So both classes are $69. That includes all 6 class meetings and the bonus zine exchange. That's going to cover the majority of your materials, although if you want to try working with something, bringing something in, please do. I highly encourage it. In intermediate making comics, if you have a laptop, a tablet, or a computer that you can bring in for your use, I really encourage it because I'm going to be providing the technology for this class, and you bringing in your own would actually be a huge help for me. So if you have something you're already comfortable with using, please feel free to bring it in. Making Comics meets from September 1st to October 24th on Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. down at the Cohn School. Intermediate Making Comics meets from September 11th through October 23rd on Wednesdays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. also at the Cohn School, and both classes meet in room 112. So if you've taken my Making Comics class before, you already know what room we're going to meet up at. I have some really high hopes for our zine exchange, but I do need to do a little bit of wheeling and dealing and possibly ask some community favors. So while we're definitely going to have a week 7 bonus week mini comic and zine exchange, and that will also be open to prior students who wish to attend as well, I have yet to lock down the location and the date yet. So if you're signing up for this class, just keep an ear out for that. You can sign up for any of the Nashville Community Ed classes through nashville.gov/CE, and I'll have a link in the description below where you can register for any class you wish, as well as class-specific links for my 2 classes. I've taken a few classes with Community Ed before, and I found them to be really high-quality classes that I've genuinely enjoyed. And my fiance Joseph took their fencing class, and he really liked it. So even if making comics is not for you, I really recommend you check out what Community Ed has to offer. You might be surprised. Nashville Community Ed offers classes in all sorts of things, from sewing, so if you're a cosplayer, their sewing classes would be a great way to learn some new technical skills, leather crafting, different types of martial arts, including European broadsword, several different types of language classes from Mandarin Chinese to Spanish to French, oil painting, acrylic painting, and of course, comics. So with such a wide array of awesome classes to choose from, I'm sure there's something that is just right for you. NCE also offers need-based scholarships, and they're actually very easy to acquire. You simply write in and talk to someone about your need. But even without a scholarship, these classes are very, very reasonably priced. I think the most expensive class is like $99, which when you're considering the time and experience that someone is putting into presenting such a class, that's a phenomenal deal. I really like teaching through Community Ed because even though I have a master's degree in fine art, specifically in sequential art, aka making those comics, I really believe in accessible, affordable art education, as is evidenced by my blog at natosoup.blogspot.com, my work with How to Be a Con Artist, and my work here on YouTube. And Community Ed provides an opportunity for me to teach a longer, more immersive comic class at a very affordable price point. I also really love that the majority of the materials are either included by me, which yes, I do pay for those out of pocket, or are included by NCE, that they provide a lot of the art materials you're going to be working with. They provide the ink, they often provide the brush pens, they provide the Bristol, they provide the non-photo blue and red colored leads that you're going to be drawing with, even down to the mechanical pencils. So if the art supplies themselves have been a big hurdle for why you haven't started drawing your own comic, come down, take this class. The materials are provided for you. If you prefer to work digitally, I encourage you to work digitally as well. I had one of my students last semester do her comic, and it turned out amazing. She did her comic on her sister's iPad using Procreate. So if there's a material you're interested in learning how to use, come on down and learn how to use it with me. We have classes that cover planning, scripting, writing your first comic, seeking and soliciting critique, designing your characters, basic figure drawing, the basics of perspective, the comic making process from script to thumbnails to roughs to pencils, printing out your comic, and more. And what we don't cover in making comics, we're going to cover in intermediate comics. I am really, really excited about intermediate comics because so much of what was touched on in making comics, we will actually have time and space to demonstrate it in intermediate comics. So scanning your pages, color correcting your pages, printing your pages using non-photo blue ink onto the paper of your choice, scanning your finished comic pages, editing, lettering, and laying out your mini comics and zines, even printing and assembling your own zines, because I'm going to bring my little toner printer. All of that is going to be covered in intermediate comics, and hopefully we'll even have time to discuss convention necessities, convention planning, doing your first convention table. And I'm currently talking to Handmade and Bound, which is a zine and handmade book festival here in Nashville, about having a table for my students. So I hope this is a really good comic making opportunity for people in the Nashville area. I hope I've wet your whistle. I hope you are somewhat enticed. I hope you will check out the recording of my live stream that was recorded at NCE's open house. It'll give you kind of a feel for who I am, what kind of work I do, and what you can expect in the class. So you'll be able to find all of this information online. I did include photos of what the registration sheet looks like, as well as further information. And if you guys have any further questions that weren't covered in the video, let me know down in the comments below.